Hi, welcome to Film Flush,
where good films float on top.
and the bad films get flushed.
In this episode of Film Flush, we see George Clooney kick some Nazi butt in The Monuments Men.
George Clooney will assemble the perfect team
You've all been selected because we're going to need your skill.
Will help.
for the biggest heist in history.
Over 100 tons of gold bullion.
Oh boy, we better get it back.
George Clooney, Matt Damon, Bill Murray, John Goodman, based on the untold true story.
What do you know about explosives? Nothing.
I think that went well.
The Monuments Men.
Okay, The Monuments Men is a historical war caper and it's based on a book by Robert Edsels of the same name. It tells the true story of a squad of art experts that were tasked to protect art and architectural masterpieces in Europe from Nazi theft and Allied bombing near the end of World War II.
So this is George Clooney's first movie since the Ides of March, like way back in 2011. And George Clooney is a very different filmmaker from most of Hollywood. Most of his efforts, like Syriana and of course Ides of March, those dealt with political conspiracies and stuff like that. But this movie from him is more of a traditional, old-timey caper film. And I think like what drew most of us into this movie is that it's about a bunch of people who are definitely don't belong anywhere near the battlefield, all these art experts, and like they're old dudes and they're all sent to basic military training, and then after that they're actually sent into the war for real. So I think that is a very humorous thing that really interests most of us for this movie. But what do you like about this film?
Yeah, I agree with you that the idea of putting a bunch of people who don't belong in a place in another place is a recipe for comedy gold. But I think in this movie, Clooney and the writer, his producing partner Grant Heslov, never strike a balance between action and comedy.
I think more key is that everything feels like a little rushed. Like when they're introducing the characters, you don't really know who these guys are other than I think George Clooney and Matt Damon's character. Everyone else is kind of introduced in a hurry, so like you kind of get why it's meant to be funny, but at the same time you're not very sure with a lot of the jokes. And like when there's supposed to be a tragic or really emotional moment, you just don't feel it because like the screen time is split between so many of these characters, and like we feel like we're like forced to jump from this chapter to this other chapter, that it comes off like a little like whoa, like you don't have room to breathe a little bit. So
right, and then about the characters, I think there's a wasted opportunity there on the part of George Clooney as director. He has assembled a great cast of characters. There's Matt Damon, there's Hugh Bonneville, there's Jean Dujardin, there's John
Blanchett,
Goodman, Kate Blanchett,
Bill Murray, the legend.
Bill Murray. But it almost feels like Clooney's Ocean's 11, that kind of buddy humor. But it falls apart somehow. It's not as funny and not as humorous as Ocean's 11. But I think that's
don't you feel like the cast is still good, but they don't have a lot to work with on the page? It just kind of shows that they're almost kind of being themselves. Like Bill Murray is kind of being himself in front of the camera, which is still funny, but it doesn't really elevate the script or the movie in any way.
Like
so.
I would enjoy, because Bill Murray in the movie is an architect. It's a famous architect. But
yes,
I think more could be developed in his character development, in his part. But we only see snippets of him, very, very small snippets of him being an architect, and I don't think he even talked about architecture to any of his co-stars in the film. You know, I think if they were more banter about art, you know, and architecture and all the art geeks speak in a movie, I think the movie will be a much greater movie, because I think that's basically the premise of the original book. Because
in the movie, what George Clooney is trying to drive home, basically, he's like trying to say, would you die for art? And I think like the passion for the art, like it's hinted, but you never, like you said, they don't actually talk that much about the art other than to advance the plot of the story. So you don't really feel that passion going through the movie, like coming out of the movie, leaping off the screen. So yeah, that's a problem. And like you don't feel very emotionally invested in the picture, so to speak.
It's not saying that Monuments Men is not an enjoyable movie. We wanted to like the movie, but I think it was quite of a letdown because it's based on a true story. It's based on a book, but I think that George Clooney, as much as he's tried to do justice to the story, he didn't. He dropped the ball. What do you think?
Yeah, like you said, it's based on a real story, and everyone knows how World War II ends. So you kind of have a clue that how it's gonna end, probably with the art being found by the crew. But like George Clooney doesn't keep the suspense or tension up. So you kind of feel like they're gonna find the art. You know, it's not a very. He doesn't give you much variance in terms of like the heightened tension or anything like that.
There's not enough suspense and tension to be a caper, and there's not enough adventure to be an adventure.
Yeah.
It's like a.
I think you nailed it there.
It's in between, you know. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and like the story is a very noble story. I mean, like this bunch of men like probably saved most of the art and like the wonderful architecture that you see if you go on tour in Europe or whatever. But yeah, I think just the way George Clooney executed it was a bit iffy and it didn't really match our expectations for the movie, I think. So
yeah, I think it's a great choice that he delayed the movie, because if he didn't and he submitted this to the Oscars, I don't know whether it'll get any nomination or not. But you know, who knows?
Maybe for costumes, art design.
So Dex, what do you think we should do to this movie?
I like the movie, but I have to admit that it's a very flawed movie. So I think it's time we do something we haven't done in a long time.
Yeah, it's time we flush a George Clooney movie. Yeah.
Still love you, George.
Yeah, you're so handsome.